Duperas today on Doop by the River. It's the special edition of Doop by the River as we are talking MLS Cup. It is the MLS Cup preview, ladies and gentlemen. Union versus LAFC, and you do not want to go anywhere because you do not want to miss this episode of Doop by the River. And let's get it started, guys.
Doop by the River
doesn't do anything well. There is not one.
I'm sorry. There was no creativity.
As a Union fan, I take that all day.
Another DP. We need to go get Mario Balotelli. And that is right. Welcome, everyone, to Doop by the River, the show where we follow everything Philadelphia Union. And, of course, we are brought to you by Philly Sports Network. Before we dive into today's episode, real quick, ladies and gentlemen, welcome everyone who's watching live on El Parcero Philly's YouTube channel. Make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe for more of your live viewings of Doop by the River. And, of course, you can find us wherever you stream podcasts from Apple, Google, and Spotify. Find us under Doop by the River podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my expert in duping, Justin Body by Burke instructor Friedberg. Justin, dude. We did it! We're going to the Cup, Justin! Dude, I really just want to take these next 30 minutes. We'll talk about the match, but I want to take some time talking about how we are feeling, because I think that is very important, not only for us, but for the fan base. We're all in an euphoric state right now.
Yeah, as many might be able to tell, I do not have much of a voice. It's better than it was yesterday, but I don't know how, what the words to describe it. It's like, the more I think about it, I still feel at a loss for words, like I was on Sunday. Having been a fan since the beginning, having been a season ticket holder for the last, 7 years or so, it's been a lot. We've definitely had a lot of downs, and we've finally started to have some ups. And this kind of feels like a bit of vindication for last year. And honestly, I'm just so fucking ecstatic. Like, I'm not much of an emotional person, but when that final whistle went off, I honestly couldn't contain myself. I was beyond ecstatic, and I think it was I think I could speak for a lot of people when I say that this was like finally, for us Union fans that were there, for those of us no longer here, it had such an emotional response for a lot of people that I think, it just shows how big this team has been for the fans.
I mean, you nail on the head. I mean, for me, like, obviously it's a very special moment, but I can't help but think about the fans who have put up with a lot more than I have, who've been through, thick and thin. When the Union started, I was a teenager. I was a young adult, and as a young adult, you're going through just the trials and tribulations of being a young adult. And, for the Union, it wasn't always my top priority. Obviously, as I got older, the love, grew. And as I got to meet, people like you and people like Tim and everyone in Sons of Ben, and just growing in this community, it's every single match, every single season, it just means a lot more to me. And what happened on Sunday night, Justin, I understand it's not the final step, right? Like, we want that cup, but to understand like where we came from, we were an absolute joke of a club. Like, I mean, the Sakavich year, everyone remembers the Sakavich years. Everyone, we had Sebo on the show talking about the time when they got kicked out of the Chester High School practice field. And like, that is kind of where that club was kind of at. We were heading in no direction. And then obviously we could talk about the Ernie Stewart days. You can talk about how Ernst kind of turned this team into an elite squad. But to see where this club came from to now, it's really what hits me the most. And I got emotional as well. I mean, it's just hard not to, especially, Justin, I think for me as well, like, we're part of something that is still growing. Like, this is a baby. When you look at this club compared to even teams around in the other professional sports, clubs around the world, as far as soccer goes, this is a baby of a league, a baby of a club. And it's crazy that we're at this point now and we have an opportunity to bring home possibly one of two championships to Philadelphia, and that is obviously really something special as well. And I think I saw Jeff and some of the old Sons of Ben members, putting out, the old members who kind of, have gone and passed, and that was a really touching moment. You think back to the Eagles Super Bowl, and you bring up your grandmom, your grandpop, who got you into watching the Eagles, and it kind of feels that same way. But Justin, the job is definitely not done, my friend.
Nope, not in the slightest.
AK Gamer, are you guys going to cry if you guys win? I would assume so. I think for me, I know it's crazy coming from me, but if the Union win on Saturday night, I honestly think it would be sweeter than the Eagles Super Bowl. And I know that it can sound as hot take-ish as it may be, but like I just talked about, growing within this team. I mean, Eagles have been around forever and ever and ever, and that's something I feel like that kind of was inherited to me. But the Union, like we were here through the beginning. I feel like that would be much more special. So, AK Gaming for sure, and I'm sure Justin the same way. We're going to be crying.
Oh yeah, I said to my dad, if they win, my friend and I are going to be going crazy. And my dad sends me a text back saying, just don't get naked. And I said, can't make any promises.
Sorry, Dad.
Sorry, Dad. I said, whatever happens. But no, I'll be an absolute mess if the Union win. It'll just mean more than I think a lot of people, will understand.
And Justin too, to the point as well. I mean, I think the storyline was, one of the big factors of this match everyone kept talking about. Considering last year's COVID game, and finally we're able to get over the hump. And I mean, the way they won the game, NYCFC went up first, kind of how we did last year, and then of course we erupted for 3 goals, and NYCFC got 2 clutch goals at the end, and just that storyline in general. I mean, that just really made it all special.
Yeah, it's I think as I said, it felt so sweet just to finally get to that mark and finally get over that hump, that bugaboo that we all as Union fans were like, oh no, can we get past this finally?
So what do you think Nick Sakavich and Peter Novak are thinking right now?
Where were these investments when we were around?
Like, do you think about those early years, like those teams and those players?
Yeah, I mean, like if you compare it in halves, if you compare 2010 to 2016 and 2017 on, they're two different ethos of philosophy and infrastructure and means. I think the first half, I mean, listen, yeah, we had a playoff in 2011. We had 2 Open Cup finals. But outside of that, there wasn't a whole lot of growth. And I think, once you get into 2016, 2017, you're getting into, from Ernie Stewart to Ernst, you're getting Ali, you're getting the emergence of Brendan Aronson and Mark McKenzie. I think you see a very big delineation between the two halves of the Union's existence, to be honest.
Yeah, man. I guess we can knock this question out the way, or we could knock this topic out the way. Brian Oriana, I'm sorry. Blake robbed of MVP. Obviously, Huni Mukhtar announced today, not too long ago, named MVP for this season. I think it's rightfully so, right, Justin?
I mean, despite the fact that I think all 3 players that were involved were absolutely MVPs for their teams. But I always, as the votes went, you're always going to have the offensive players are the ones that are going to really move the needle on that. So I said it all the whole way that it was going to be Mukhtar. Like, I don't think there was any doubt whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Andre Blake may be the MVP of these playoffs, but, we're talking regular season here, but for sure making his case, man. What's up, Ryan? What's going on, man? Philly for MLS Cup and World Series. That's what we're talking about. That's
I got Game 3 on right now.
That is correct. That is
I'm,
correct.
I'm,
Phillies
I'm
in
ready.
game
I'm
2.
ready. I'm ready to get my heart broken or excited. Who knows? Who knows? It's gonna be a whole lot of emotions over the next few days.
It's a different Philadelphia. All right, we're Winnadelphia these days. All right, just
Yeah.
Winnadelphia.
Can you imagine if the Phillies win, the Union win? Like, can the world handle sustained Philadelphia success,
Nah,
or will it be burn the entire world to the ground?
and that's not even just that. I mean, the Eagles could potentially win a Super Bowl. I know everyone's still
Oh
sour
yeah,
on
no,
the
if that happens again,
Sixers.
yeah, like I said, the city of Philadelphia will literally be a War of 1812 and burned to the ground and then rebuilt. I'm just saying that's that's what's gonna happen.
It is fun, man, and I'm glad the Union are part of this as well, man. It's definitely a beautiful time, man. AK Gaming saying he thinks we're gonna win in pens. Okay, well we'll talk about that a little bit later
Yeah,
in our
I don't know.
preview.
I mean, I don't know if it'll go that far, to be honest.
And we'll see, man. And are we going to the game live? I've had this question asked a lot to me.
Yeah,
Honestly,
our good pal Eve of the Ball is Round messaged me after the game, and we were talking, and we were chatting the last few days, and she goes, "Oh, you going to the game?" And yeah, and like she was one of the first to ask me, and I said no, like one trips out to LA with everything, or it could be
LA
crazy
ain't
expensive.
cheap, guys.
Yeah, but also like I've had this golf trip lined up. It's one I do every year, and I had travel insurance only on the predication that the Union were hosting. So I was like, you know what, I can still watch the game when I go, and actually go on a vacation as well. So I will be watching from whatever bar I can in Myrtle Beach.
In Myrtle Beach. All right, let's get to a couple more of these comments, and then we're gonna get to the actual match here. Goalkeeper of the year is like Cy Young. It's hard for a goalkeeper to break out and win MVP.
Yeah, I think
Good
what was
point.
it like? Was it Tony Miola was either one of the only ones to either win it or be nominated? Um, I just think as a goalkeeper myself, I just don't like
Say it with your chest, Justin.
it is the most underappreciated but the most easily criticized position. Like
100%.
it is
100%.
and it's something that like when I listen to broadcasts, the thing that really grinds my gears to go into a rant is when non-goalies make comments about, oh well, the goalie should have saved that, or like anything about positioning or like rebound spills, and like I'll always look at a shot and go, well, you know what, yeah, the goalie did spill that, wasn't great, or and then I'll say one like, well, there was a screen, there was like I always try to give the goalie the benefit of the doubt. And when a goalie makes a save, it's like, wow, and then you forget about it like 2 seconds later for most people. So I think, as we'll talk about in this game, the value of a goalie, the value of a save can mean way more than anyone will ever realize in the terms of the momentum of a game.
All right, one more question here, Justin. This is a good one. Best visitor at the tailgate: the Cooligans, Tommy Bogues, or the MLS production team? You were obviously there the whole time.
Yeah. So I was texting our pal Christian, asking because they were in DC for the NWSL final, and I was like, hey, whenever you guys get here, I'm over at the beer table. Come say hey, and so I saw them walking over, and they were chilling, and then of course
They got this swagger about them when they walk.
oh my
It's
god,
like,
Alexis too, and finally for the
Cooligans.
first time, Alexis knows me and knows, and we've talked several times, but it's the first time we ever met, and he like gave me the biggest of hugs, and we were just chilling. We were
Love
ribbing
those
on
dudes,
each
man.
other, and
Love those
then
dudes.
and then I had been joking with Tom about coming to the tailgate, and next thing I know, I see this
You see the stash?
I see this. Yeah, I see a man about my height walking over in a hoodie and black pants and the stash, and I'm like,
He
oh
gave
my
you the
god,
hoodie.
yo, the hoodie was fresh. I would not lie.
I don't doubt that, bro.
Tom's got some solid drip, But I was introducing myself, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm the one that prodded you to come to the ticket. He's like, no, he's like I appreciate it. He's like, I had known that Alexis and Christian were coming, and it was really fun. I got to talk with Alexis and Christian for a while. Got to talk with Tom for a bit. Just kind of riffing, and just Pablo Maurer was there of all people.
What? He
And
made
Tom
the
was
trip.
like, Tom's like, have you met Pablo? And Pablo was like, I'm like, yeah. And I mentioned the EMLS event from 2020, and Pablo was like, oh yeah,
Sure.
I remember that. And it was fun. And Danny Higginbotham stopped by. I gave Danny
Yes, I did see him.
a twisted tea. He was out, and I was like, oh,
And he drinks the twisted teas.
Oh yeah, no, he was. I was, I was like, Danny, I think you could use a top off. He's like, oh, I appreciate it. I'm like,
there you go, Dan.
yeah, no, the tailgate was wild. It was sold out. About 500 tickets or so.
Sons of Ben.
Just sell out. Shouts to everyone. Devin all season. Doing great tailgates. Haley and Kelsey for helping me run the beer table and just being a sense of all that chaos, because it got very chaotic during that day, and we were all, even before the match, we were all just standing there exhausted, and the game hadn't even started yet. So shout out to everyone, all the volunteers besides myself that really made that tailgate popping.
Absolutely. I stopped by. It definitely looked absolutely great. And why wouldn't it? Because it was NYCFC. It was the Philadelphia Union. Justin, let's get into this matchup real quick. So to start it off, the lineup, obviously the same. You got your original, your A1, your A-team lineup. Ali back in the starting 11 with Olivier on the right fullback. Everything else the same. And through the first half, although NYCFC dominating possession, the Union seemed to dictate the pace of the match. They had better opportunities at NYCFC. And heading into the second half, one thing that was really evident in the first half was Ali's fitness. And of course, Justin, Tim, and I noticed it very well, and it was kind of heartbreaking to watch. And Jim made the tough decision at halftime to switch Jack in for Ali. Couldn't go anymore. And then, we got 12 minutes into the first half. NYCFC, they kept pressing, and the Union, I don't know if it was Jack trying to get himself acclimated into it with him, coming in the second half, beginning of the second half, but NYCFC got the Union on a good one, off a quick break and off a crossing, and Maxi Morales, as Justin would say, he's his height, so it's kind of tough to catch Maxi Morales as he's running down the center of the pitch, and he gets it right past Andre Blake, and ensued. NYCFC acted like they just won the match, and they're celebrating in the corner, and they're ready, booking their tickets to LA. And everyone in the stands and even everyone on the pitch knew it's going to be all right. That stuff happens, but we still got plenty of time left to play. So the Union put the foot on the darn gas pedal, ladies and gentlemen. First, it starts off off of a free kick. Julian Carranza from Jakob Glezis, a great pass, and Julian Carranza absolutely bullying. I believe it was Martins, the defender. If not, it was Collins. But Sean Johnson creeping far too left, creeping up on that post, lefty far post, wide the F open. Julian Carranza took advantage of that space. That got the place wound up as a tied up match. And then literally 2 minutes later, Jack McGlynn with a perfect pass into the box. Julian Carranza with great awareness heads the ball right at Gazdak's foot just for him to blast it right past Sean Johnson. That got the Union the lead, but they were not done there. Corey Burke comes in the match for Mikhail Ua, and 6 minutes later, what an absolute run by Corey Burke. He's looking like freaking Jordan Howard running down the middle of the damn pitch. There was no one stopping him. He loses the ball in the box. He gets a shot off of his opposite foot, and that got a 3 spot. And that is all the Union needed. It got a little dicey, and NYCFC was pushing, but the Union were clamping down. They were not allowing another goal. They were determined to head their asses to LA. And after 90 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, your Philadelphia Union got the monkey off the back and hoisted the Eastern Conference Final Cup or championship, whatever you want to call it. And we're heading to LA. Justin, give me your takeaway from this match, man. What a 90 minutes we watched, brother.
Yeah, the first half there wasn't too much to take away. Daniel Gazdag had the goal that was chalked off for offside, rightfully so. After that, I think the Union were the better team in the first half. It was very clear. Once you got about 30 minutes, 35 minutes in, you could tell Ali was struggling. And he was making not making the runs he usually would, and you could tell he was done. And Jack McGlynn was getting those solid warm-ups, and it was expected. I think they said if they could get Ali to get 45, they would be happy. The Union had their chances early, and the goal came off a free kick. Sean Johnson sprays it wide out to Tinnerholm. Tinnerholm gets it to the middle and makes that run. Max Morales finds the ball. Tinnerholm first times that right into the path of Santi Rodriguez. Rodriguez lays it off. And Morales, listen, that's one of the few times Andre Blake is not going to be able to save that shot. NYCFC were, acting like they had just scored a late winner. They were going ballistic, and their fans were, and it was, and last year that would have deflated the team. And then, but it's, you were there with me. As soon as they, the celebration was done, the stadium got louder, and the fans got back into it. And then the team, it was dicey for a few minutes. Andre Blake with when I say saves can be momentum changers, Andre Blake's save on Alexander Collins, that header had some real power. That thing was hard. That thing was hit with some pace. And Andre Blake with the strong arm to, force that away, and Jack Gale with the clearance. And then boom, the Union, like all of that, like that lit a fire. And they had, what was already kind of in moment, started, just got accelerated. And then, on a dead ball, NYCFC caught napping. That's a off the training ground kind of a play. And, Carranza perfectly ran, perfectly weighted, perfect ball. Sean Johnson was off his line, 1-1, boom. 2 minutes later, Jack McGlynn with a perfect ball. And the one thing, and they said it on the broadcast, the one thing that Daniel Gazdag has done well this season has been the follow-up on these balls. It's why, he's a goal-hungry 10. He loves to make that crashing run. And, when that ball came in, he was just onside, perfectly timed. And he waits and smashes that thing, under the roof. He got over that and just lofted it. Sean Johnson had no chance. And, the Union were riding. And, Corey Burke's goal, my Lord. First off, just throwing the young, midfielder who throws in the center back, Justin Hack, completely just, sit down, young buck, and let me show you how it's done. And just slaloming through, gets around the midfielder, tries to cut it back, ball gets knocked away. Tinnerholm tries to clear it, bounces right off Corey Burke. Corey Burke doesn't even have to take a touch. Blam, passes it right home, 3-1. And honestly, at that point, it was just like, holy shit, this game in an instant has been turned on its head. The Union are in control, and it just, like, the more I kept looking at the clock, I'm going, this can't be real. Like, this can't be real. What is happening? And honestly, it was like, holy shit, we're going to the MLS Cup final. A well-deserved for the way this team, most goals scored in the team's history, second best goal differential in league history, least amount of goals given up in a 34-game season, second least given up all time. It just feels right. Like, it just feels right. And like, I still legitimately, I'm pretty at a loss for words to describe the feeling. but we are going to the fucking MLS Cup final.
Absolutely, man. I wanted to bring up the attack and predominantly Daniel Gazdag. He got the goal, but just throughout the entire match, the dude was everywhere. He kept going, like that engine did not stop. I think I was telling Tim, like, he was going on the press. It reminded me like Seba. Like, remember when Seba would go on that press and he's just like running wild? He's got this crazy face on his face. Like that's how Daniel Gazak was out throughout points of the match. And like, as I don't want to look too far ahead because we're going to talk about the LAFC match, but this group, right? Gazak, Carranza, and Ua. I think we spent $5 million around that for these three guys, and they are an elite bunch. And in the second half, I mean, they got their opportunity. They really turned it the F on. Like the Gazak goal, like what a great awareness by Carranza. Just laid that with his head to Gazak's foot, man. To his feet, I'm sorry. And so to me, like, that was really impressive the way, I mean, Gazak was just dominant on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, this front three, we said it all year, you know, especially in the first half of the season before they really kicked it on in July. We said once they really get going, once they get this chemistry, it'll be perfect because we saw from the first moment that Gazdag and Carranza had the chemistry. Ua, obviously, with the visa issues and with the injuries, he needed time to settle in. But it's been very clear on both sides of the ball, this front three has been a workhorse. I think they are the best front three in the league. Full stop. They have, in terms of goal contributions, in terms of, feeding off each other. Daniel Gazdag has an insane work rate on both ends of the ball. Carranza is willing to get dirty, willing to get in their spots. And Mikel Ua is probably the speedster of the three, but he, isn't afraid to be physical, is not afraid to really throw his body around and be able to hold off defenders and, get in those dirty areas, all three of them. And, they love combining with each other. And it's something that I don't think we've ever seen in this, in Union history, to see an attacking trio of this magnitude.
Yeah, I liked how, because we talked about in the preview, we all knew the back line was definitely going to be weak for NYCFC. And, I saw a lot of those balls over the top that they were trying to get through, try to attack that back line. You saw the press throughout the match as well. But obviously, I mean, the lasting image is going to be Burke just freaking manhandling Muck, man.
And that's the thing. And they mentioned it on the broadcast. I've been watching the highlights a number of times. And on the chance that Ua had that Johnson forced wide, the Stu Holden kept saying, the Union, the NYCFC is playing a dangerous game where they're throwing everyone else up high, and the Union are going, okay, you know what? We're going to throw it over the top, and Carranza and Ua, you guys settle it down or either take it down net. And that's what they were doing. They were stretching that back three, which I think they were missing Chanot, but
yeah,
I mean, I will say the kid tried to hold his own. I think he did a decent job. It was a tough ask of anyone. But yeah, it was a matter of time before the Union broke that defense down. It is next to impossible to shut down this front three. And with the options they have, and the amount of players that can crash the box and also get back, it makes this Union team, like I said, they are probably one of the most dangerous teams, the most dangerous team in the East by far, and one of the most dangerous teams in the MLS. And it's fitting that both number one seeds for the first time since 2003 make it to the MLS Cup final. And I fully expect this game to be an absolute juggernaut.
What was that matchup in 2003?
I believe it was Chicago Fire. I think Chicago Fire, DC United. I will
believe it was Chicago and SKC. I think AK Gaming gave us this on Sunday, on Sunday night. But I would have to double check, and that would be
2003. It was almost 2003 was Chicago Fire and San Jose Earthquakes.
The San Jose Earthquakes. Okay. So definitely,
San Jose winning 4-2. Landon Donovan scoring 2 goals and being named MVP.
of course he was. Appreciate you. Great the clarification, Mister AK Gaming there.
But that's crazy. Like the fact that and that's one of the things I love about about this league is it that shows that there's been so much parity in this league over its existence. But it also shows that, man, like, especially the fact that 2 number 1 seeds are LA and Philly, and it's not the LA Galaxy. Like that's the thing. Like this is, these next evolutions of MLS have been wild, and I'm here for the ride. I love it. I love all the parody and all the chaos.
All right. Well, with that being said, Justin, it's time, man. It's time to talk about this matchup, brother. I've never been this excited to preview a match than I am now, because this is it. It's for the cup. It's for what we've talked about all along, man. And this is and it's not just that. This is a really fun matchup. Like as a soccer nerd, purist, whatever you want to call it, this is a really exciting matchup between both these sides. So, Justin, let's get to this in preview. So, joining us, ladies and gentlemen, from the Shoulder to Shoulder podcast, please welcome Mr. Jonathan Reimer to help us preview this match. Hey, what's going on, man? How you feeling, bro? Oh, Jonathan, you're muted there, man. Oh, now we still can't hear you. It's so funny. We were able to hear him too earlier, guys. We promised we were able to hear him. All right, we'll we'll try to get this fixed, guys. We'll in just 1 second. No worries. We'll have Jonathan in just one moment. Hey, that's technical difficulty. We know how to handle these days, guys. Right now, we appreciate you coming in here, man. What's going on right now? How you feeling? I want to wait to talk about this match because I really want to get Jonathan's in perspective and input here about this one. What was your feeling, Justin, when you found out that it was LAFC, not Austin? Because obviously that had a lot to do with where the match should be played.
Yeah, like I guess it was kind of mixed emotions. Like, dang, they won't be able to say I could go to the game in Philadelphia, but I'm also like, yay, I get to go on my golf trip, but like it's like the fact the Union still advanced. Like I get to go down there and watch it, and then like
absolutely. All right, let's see if Jonathan is as good to go here. What's up, Jonathan? No, we still got nothing, man. I don't know if you want to plug the mic.
Washer?
It does sound like a washer.
How about now?
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Oh,
yeah.
Bueno, amigo. So sorry about that. Everything was working pre-show. It showed everything is looking fine. And my apologies.
That's all good, man.
Thank you guys for having me. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good, man. John, we really appreciate you having in here, man. So obviously you watch LAFC up close and personal, my man. So just kind of tell the people who have never heard you before kind of what you do, man.
So my name's Jonathan Reimer. I am the co-host of the Shoulder to Shoulder podcast. You can follow us at LAFC S2S on all your social media platforms. I sit in the 3252 with the District 9 Ultras, sit on the council for the 3252 as well, too. I also do the TV broadcast for the Empire Strikers in the MASL.
Look at that, man. Look at that resume. I like that. All right, Jonathan. So were you a former USA fan? I always have to ask this.
Yes, I was. So, being an Angelino, right, I support my local clubs, which I tried to do in 96 when the first club showed up here in Los Angeles. But that was a very, very difficult atmosphere and club to really get behind. I tried to be a fan from day one and just had so many terrible experiences with fans and at the stadium. And it was really kind of a lot of orange slices and Capri Suns, and not really the soccer culture I was hoping to see here in the States. I got a lot of family back in Germany and was really hoping for a little bit more intense style fandom. Didn't really get that. Kind of fell out of MLS, continued watching European soccer. Chivas USA showed up, and I was ecstatic about that. But right around that time, I work in the alcohol industry, and I was up in wine country in Northern California, so I didn't get to come to a lot of games. When work brought me back here to Los Angeles, that was right around the time LAFC was forming. So it was a very easy choice for me to get in on the ground floor. I think I was like the 380-somethingth person to put money down for season tickets, and no looking back. And it's been one of the greatest decisions of my sporting life.
That is pretty cool, because there are some parallels between LAFC and Philadelphia. How, the fan base pushing the club is so big for both sides. Before the Union, there was a lot of, I don't know, Justin, if you can attest to it as well, but we had guys who were Red Bull / Metro Star fans. We had DC United fans because we just wanted soccer, and we didn't have a team in Philadelphia. And it's so interesting talking to guys who were fans during those early years, and there was only so many clubs you could choose from. So it's crazy how much we evolved, and LAFC definitely doing a great job of creating just an overall great soccer culture, Jonathan.
Yeah, and I think this is one thing. Everyone looks at LAFC and they go, "Oh, they've only been a club for 8 years, only had a team for 5 years. Like, where did this fan base come from?" And I don't think people realize that there are millions of soccer fans in Los Angeles, and so many of them that were disenfranchised with what we had locally, that when this team came around and it checked so many boxes of what people were looking for, that all these fans sort of came out of the woodwork. We were always here within the fabric of Los Angeles. There was just never a team that captivated our attention the way LAFC has. And, as they say, the rest has been history.
Oh, yeah. Just look at any El Tri match in LA, any Chivas, any America match in LA. Dude, they're outselling some of the professional sports teams in LA itself, man. It's crazy.
Sure, and not only the Latino market as well, too, but I mean, when any of the European clubs come and play here, I've seen Arsenal here, I've seen Bayern Munich here, I've seen, a ton of English teams and Bundesliga teams and La Liga teams come here, and those stadiums are packed with diehard fans that are so ecstatic about seeing a team they love for the first time. These fans have always been here. There was just, again, never a club that really, found a way to connect with them.
Absolutely. Let's get to Sunday a little bit. First off, I want to get kind of, we in the beginning of this pod today, we talked about our feeling, obviously what we've gone through with this club and what it meant winning the Eastern Conference for you personally. And you could talk about the fan base in general. What does it feel for LAFC to finally get to this point? You guys, obviously a brand new club, but you guys have gotten pretty close as well. So what was it feeling like after Sunday?
I've sat there at the Bank of California Stadium and watched a different team hoist a Western Conference championship trophy. I sat there and watched the Seattle Sounders cover our pitch in their green confetti and watched all their players celebrate with their families. And that memory lives strong from 2019 with all of us at the bank, right? And the thought of seeing green confetti, albeit in a lighter shade, adorning the pitch once again, there was a lot of fear for people, but a belief that this team is built differently this year. And I know that we have two diametrically opposed teams in how they were constructed. A Philly team that has been, so well knit and played together so phenomenally this whole season, and an LAFC team that has, got off to a great start, but had a lot of subtractions, a lot of additions, went through a bit of a slag while things were kind of putting themselves together, but, are clicking here at the end at the perfect time. And I think for many of us fans, there was still, what we saw in August had us a little bit fearful of whether or not this team could put it all together come the end of the season. But the kind of performance that we saw this past weekend, I mean, just 10 out of 10 across the entire 11. There wasn't a single player who didn't have one of the best performances of their career and arguably one of the greatest LAFC matches ever played.
Absolutely. Jonathan, you mentioned this team finally clicking. Since we last met you guys, or since we last played you guys, obviously a lot has changed for LAFC roster-wise, and obviously the play on the pitch as well. But it feels like towards the end of the season, it started really clicking for the team. What has really changed throughout the season to this point now for LAFC?
To me, there have been a lot of additions and subtractions to the 11, but there are two to me that have been the most impactful. The first of which has been the addition of Giorgio Chiellini to the back line. His experience, his knowledge, his ability, not only to perform on the pitch, but work with players in the training ground. The defense is night and day different since he has arrived. And you can just see it in how comfortable they look, their positioning. I mean, so much of his impact cannot be overstated on this club. And defensively, what he has been able to do to lock up that back line, obviously Segura coming back from the ACL injury that had him out until June, reintegrating him back into the squad. I mean, those are two top caliber MLS defenders right there. I think many in the LAFC community would argue that Giorgio Chiellini, had he played a full season, would be a best 11 type talent on the back line. Nothing against Murillo and Ibiaga, but the two of them are certainly not at the same level as Segura and Chiellini. Now, we're obviously probably not going to see Segura in the final. It's going to be Murillo, but knowing that he has Giorgio Chiellini next to him there has been massive. And then up top, Brian Rodriguez, a player with so much talent, so much ability, but never seemed to figure it out. Never really fit in LAFC's 4-4 or 4-3-3 system. He's better off in a 4-4-2, and we see him excelling with Club America now. But when Denny Bouanga came in, just the power, the ability that he brings up top has really been able to balance the attack to the point where teams have to worry about all three players across that front line now. Where I think, earlier this season, teams knew they could check out from what Raito was doing. But those two additions to me have completely changed the entire direction of the squad.
Absolutely. Justin, I want to throw it to you, man. LAFC, it clearly play with a certain pace, and the Union do it as well. How concerned are you with that matchup as far as the pace of LAFC, man?
I'm not really worried because I think the Union are one of the most well-conditioned teams in the league. That's one thing that Ernst Tanner instilled, in the players and in Jim from the very beginning is, they may not have been the best, and we saw that in 2018, 2019, started to build, but damn it, they're gonna try to run you off the field. And the two biggest additions, I think are, Leon Flock, who was signed for a nominal amount from St. Pauli and has arguably been, I think, the most underrated player that the Union have had in the past 2 years. His work rate is second to none. He covers every blade of grass on the field. He will, when him and Brujo combined are an absolute wrecking ball. And it has been insane night and day for this midfield to finally have someone who could take the running off of Ali Bedoya, because Ali Bedoya is 35 years old. And he is one of the smartest midfielders in this league, has an insane football IQ. But he needed to save his legs, and having Leon has been helpful. And up top, obviously Daniel Gazdag cannot be understated how big he is. And Mikel Uwa was great, but getting Julian Carranza initially on loan from Inter Miami, and then Ernst Tanner with a master stroke of a deal to make the permanent clause transfer $500,000. I mean, Miami paid $6 million for him. And listen, he seemed like, obviously to most people, he seemed like a bust. But he was being played out of position. He was being played as a winger. And Robbie Robinson's suffering the same fate at Miami. You play him as a second striker, and right away you saw his ability to connect with Gazdag, his ability to get in behind, to get in those dirty areas, and that front three has been changed by the fact now that Daniel Gazdag has strikers that can actually connect, can actually play. And I've been saying this all year, when the front three finally gets going, they are the best front three in the league. And right now, they are the reason, obviously, besides the league's best defense, they are the reason that this team is where they are right now.
John, let me ask you something. What is the census as far as the future with Carlos Vela?
Well, he's signed through next summer. I think for a lot of LAFC fans, it's the question of not whether or not Carlos Vela is a great addition to the LAFC squad. That's unmistakably yes. It's whether or not a DP slot is the best solution long term for Carlos Vela. Him staying with the team is a massive boost to the team. You know, what he does in the locker room, what he does in the community, and certainly what he does on the pitch are all massive to the success of this team. You know, he wears the captain's armband for a reason, and he's a phenomenal talent. But as he continues to age, is he going to be worthy of that DP slot? And I think more importantly to the LAFC community, is he going to be able to accept a contract that is not a designated player level? Because if you're able to buy him down with allocation money, then you absolutely keep him. But there's only so many DP slots in a roster. And as he continues to age, is he worthy of that DP slot? But that's a 2023 problem. 2022, right. Carlos Vela, you know, has really changed from the goal-scoring prolific threat that he was a couple years ago in his MVP season to being the facilitator, being the motivator, right? And, you know, with him leading the team in assists this season, I think he's settled into that role quite well.
It's crazy to think where we're at with that. But, you know, it's funny because we kind of went through that with Ali. And Ali went, you know, he took, you know, less money. We got rid of that DP slot as well. And, you know, it's just for the greater good of the team. You know, it's understanding that this team needs more. You know, obviously you're in a different spot of your career. That is definitely big. Drummond, I just don't want this game to be decided on a BS red card or penalty call.
I think every LAFC fan completely agrees with that. I think there have been at least 10 or 15 games in which everyone was irate with pro ref at the end of the game. And you know, as much as it frustrated some of the Austin fans that the penalty wasn't called, what we saw from Villarreal and pro ref in the Western Conference final, where they just let them play, you know, don't let whistles play a big part in the game, let the talent out on the pitch decide it, was refreshing to see as an alternative from some very over officiated games we have seen early on. But I hope that is the trend going into this cup. I hope there are far fewer whistles, but you know, look, these are two physical teams, and I wouldn't be surprised if they both attempt to employ that to their advantage. And if the ref decides to interject himself into the game, pro ref has decided games this year. You know, we all know
wild,
that.
Man.
Wild.
But listen, who gets the yellow card first? El Brujo or Kellen Acosta?
That's a very good question, right? I mean, does Giorgio Chiellini decide to play volleyball? You know, I mean, who knows, right? There's so many things that could happen in this game, and one decision like that can absolutely turn the tide of a game. I don't think a penalty for Austin would have really turned the tides in that game. That they were not showing much that, you know, if it had gone to 2-1, that they were going to find a way to scrap back into that game. But it can, and Pro Ref has certainly shown that you know, they can influence a game. I think for both fan bases, we just want to let them play.
Absolutely, man. It is so, like, trying to understand the Western Conference Finals here. So is it more so that Austin did not show up, or is it the LAFC just were on another level that day?
You know, that's a fantastic question. Austin is a really good team. I think they have outperformed a lot of their metrics throughout the course of the season. And statistically, they were due for a regression to the mean at some point in time. It just seemed to happen to every single player at every moment. I think there's also something to be said for LAFC. You know, they went out to such a huge lead in the Supporters Shield, right? And then it was really more of a focus of integrating players, working through some new tactics, figuring out a few things. I don't feel like the team really had their foot on the gas throughout the end of summer. And I feel like they were saving up a lot of these performances for the playoffs. And now that we're in the playoffs, we got through a very, very emotional and hard game against our bitter crosstown rivals. I think it was just such a relief at that point. You know, in listening to Ilie Sanchez's comments after the game, he said, you know, for many of the players, it felt like at halftime, we almost forgot we were in a Western Conference final. And it was all just about having fun again. And for the first time in a while, it felt like they were just out there playing some free-flowing, beautiful soccer, something that they've been kind of holding back on throughout the course of, you know, the final games of the season. And now that, you know, there's no capacitor, everyone's going full bore, to see what this team can do has been exciting to watch.
Absolutely, man. So Drummond here, I had to say this, but I doubt Bedoya plays in this game. He could barely climb the stairs. You could tell in the interview he knows he's done this season and possibly for good. I can't think about the future, Drummond. But I mean, we talked about this, Justin. It just I don't know what to think or what to expect from him on Saturday night.
I think. Listen, you know, Jim. He'll give him every opportunity to attempt it. But I think also Ali knows if he's ready or not. I mean, he's a tough son of a bitch. You know, Ali
He really has to be in pain, man.
Yeah, Ali's the one who's going to tell Jim whether or not he's ready, not the other way around. That's how Ali is. He is, one tough son of a bitch is the reason he's been the captain for a long time now. And listen, if the Union do win, you might see Ali actually call it a career. I don't know. I mean, he is on other contract for next year. He could decide to step down. But knowing Ali, even he could also be like, you know what? No, I want to do one more year. So who knows? I think either way, Ali Bedoya's impact will be felt one way or another. If he can't play, he'll be as close as he can. Probably sitting on the bench or on the area if he can.
I think that's sad for all MLS fans, right? We're probably not going to see Bedoya in this game. We're probably not going to see Gareth Bale in this game. And I think, on paper, for everyone across the league and across the world, it would be a better game if both of those players were out there at top fitness and performing. And it's disappointing, but, this is where depth gets tested. And frankly, I thought Philly looked a lot better after he came off in your conference final.
Yeah, it was one of those things where the consensus was if they could get 45 out of him, 30, you could probably get 45. And around that 30 to 35 minute mark, you could tell he was laboring. I mean, it was very obvious. And listen, Ali Bedoya and Jack McGlynn are two different players. But the one thing that Jack McGlynn has the ability to do, and we saw it on a few occasions, is drop those dimes in behind. And you have strikers that can run on. And if they can catch up to it but don't have a shot, well, you have, the guy who's tied for, second in the Golden Boot race, running in behind and will blast that home. And, don't forget, you also have super sub Corey Burke coming off the bench and manhandling your defense, as we saw on Sunday. It's, it can't, they're the one thing that both teams have managed to do well this year is use their depth. Both teams, there's a reason why this is the first time since 2003 that two number one seeds have made it to the MLS Cup final. And these are the two deepest teams. These are probably the two best offensive teams, probably two of the best defensive teams. It is a absolute juggernaut of a battle. It'll be an absolute, heavyweight, 12 round, boxing match. And who knows how long this will take. It's not going to be blowout either side. There is no way with these two teams. It is not going to be more than one goal margin if it is decided in 120 minutes. It is going to be, tight as nails, and as our boss and friend Liam would say, it'll be squeaky bum time for most of the game.
That's for sure, guys. I don't think that this is going to be a one-sided affair. Just a reminder, the three times that both these sides have faced off against each other, it's ended in draws. So let's just put it that way. So
you're saying that Jakob Lesnes is going to fire one from 45 yards now?
He could very well. This is going to take 120 minutes, maybe PKs. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I think, as an LAFC fan and from the black and gold perspective, nobody wants to see this go to PKs. I don't, I do not want to put the game in Blake's hands. Philly has some scary players. I mean, none more Frankenstein horrific than your goalkeeper, right? I mean, he is arguably the best goalkeeper the league has ever seen. Certainly the best goalkeeper this year. And I mean, just, look at our most recent matchup. I mean, LAFC outshot Philly, I think it was 22-9 in the last game. But the game ends 2-2, and we've seen a lot of those games here as an LAFC fan, right? I mean, Philly had 2 shots on goal, scored 2 goals. right? And those are the kind of results that Philly has been able to grind out all season long. I mean, you're not a team that's going to rack up the highest number of shots, but the amount of shots that go in versus taken, it's an incredibly high percentage, right? And so I look, if this game goes to PKs, I think that's the one time in which you could say there is a clear advantage, and it is advantage Philly, in my opinion, there. So, I mean, if I'm LAFC and this game is tied at the end of 90 and we're going into stuff, you got to throw the kitchen sink at it at that point. You cannot let this game go to PKs. That's not a good situation for us. But, as far as, 90 or 120 minutes, that's where I think the game has to be won from our perspective.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, listen, Andre Blake is, you're right. I think he has to be in the discussion for probably one of the best goalies this league has ever seen. And there's been a lot of, we start with, Tony Miola, Brad Friedel, Casey Keller, Stefan Fry at this point, Tim Melia. You could go down the list of goalies that have played this league, that have graced this league, and have just been insane. And then you have, like I said, it's that ability where I've been saying it all season. The Union may not outshoot you. In fact, most of the time they may be outshot. But if you the thing that the Union do have is they've been clinical. They've been clinical with the few chances they get. And if you give them those key opportunities, they will take it. And I think if it's into extra time and you see the Union pressing, I think Sharundle is you're gonna have to throw the kitchen sink. You're gonna do what Cincinnati did in the second half of the semifinal and just throw everything you got at it, because you do not want Andre Blake deciding. And Andre Blake is probably one of the best active goalies in stopping PKs.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was the deciding moment in your conference final. That massive, massive save he had when the game was, 1-0 NYCFC. If that goal goes in, I don't know if we see the quick 2-3 goals in succession that y'all were able to rattle off there. It becomes a completely different game at that point. That save was the momentum swing that I think really lit the fire that got you guys back in that.
Yeah, man.
That's concerning.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I've said this from the start is in the past, Andre Blake used to have to steal us games. And this season, he is assisted in securing games. And the goalie is as a goalie myself, the goalie is the most underappreciated and easily criticized position. I said this earlier, but the impact a goalie can have in one moment, that save on Collins, just hard arm out, stop. Jack Elliott clears, and that was 60 minutes. Within 5 minutes, you score a goal. Like that momentum changer. Both coaches said that absolutely changed the momentum of the game. And if it's tight like that, and Andre Blake comes up with another save like that, if you're LAFC, you got to look at that next 5 to 10 minutes and go, "Oh shit, this team has the momentum. We better shore things up." And I think it's going to be in this game. I think it's going to come down to that one moment, either a sliding block, goalie making a key save. It's going to be one of those moments that is going to set the pace for this game.
Yeah, or in true MLS fashion, it's 5-0 at halftime and completely over one direction, right? And despite all of the metrics saying it's going to be a close, well-fought game, one team will just run away with it, right? I mean, it's that's always a possibility.
Absolutely. One more question, John, before we get to lineups and predictions. I've been hearing a lot so far, LAFC being the favorites on Saturday, which, I understand. But for you, what worries you the most about this Union team? What aspect of this club worries you?
I mean, if I had to pick number one, it's Blake. I mean,
Okay.
that's absolutely the biggest fear. If I had to pick a number two, to me, it's Carranza. And I think we saw it in, the 2-2 draw we played earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Carranza's falling over, got a man right in front of him outside the box, and somehow halfway to the ground, he fires a perfect curler to the top corner for you guys to take a 2-1 lead in that game, right? And you can do everything right defensively, and he's still one of those players that, you know, even if he's blocked off a ball, even if he's outside the box, even if he doesn't have a good look, he can still put a ball in the back of the net, right? And that to me is very concerning, because you can do everything right and still lose when you have a player with that kind of talent out there on the pitch. To me, that's probably the 1A, 1B concern for LAFC. You know, the other thing is, of course, but I think this weighs for both of our teams, is that this is our first MLS Cup, right? So sometimes you worry that the teams, you know, had so much emotionally invested in making it to the Cup that once they get there, there might be just that little bit of focus, that little bit of attention to detail that tapers off, because there was so much concern about not making it here that there might not be that attention to detail once you're here. So on our side, that's the concern, is the focus. And I think we've brought in the right kind of players that have the right kind of experience to be able to keep that focus through the Cup final. But as far as what you guys bring, you know, look, these are the two best front threes in the league, a 1A and 1B, if you will. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun one, and I'm so glad I'll be front row watching it.
Damn straight, man. All right, let's get to some lineups and predictions. Jonathan, you can start here as well. What would be the starting 11 in your opinion on Saturday night?
I don't think we're going to see anything different than what we saw versus Austin. Okay. It's Crepeau in goal. You're going to have Hollingshead and Escobar on the outside. You're going to have Giorgio Chiellini, and you're going to have Murillo there across the back line. It would be Eddie Segura over Murillo if he's healthy. It sounds like the injury is still going to keep him out of the starting lineup. Across the midfield, you're still going to have Acosta and Sifu up front. You're still going to have Ilie Sanchez in the back, and the front three is still going to be Bouanga, Vela, and Arango. I don't see the need for any change there, nor any tactical advantage you would get by doing anything different. I still think, you know, as well as Kwadwo Mahala Opoku has played, he's a game changer that comes in for the last 20 minutes. LAFC have very little depth at midfield. There's no way Blessing or Mendez are going to get a start there. And I think Escobar is still sort of suffering from the concussion he had earlier this year. And I think you want the offensive threat of Hollingshead over him. So I don't think he comes in at right back.
All righty. Justin, any changes?
I think the only obvious change is Jack McGlynn in for Ali Bedoya. Yeah. I think, listen, as I say it, and then this will be the last time all season I say it, Andre Blake and permanent marker. You know, that man, that, you know, there is nothing anyone can do. And I love Matt Freese, but there's nothing anyone can do till the day Andre Blake says I'm done to change that fact. You know,
I mean, if this was a schoolyard game right now and you split up all of MLS into two sides and you were captains and you got to pick first, I mean, there's nobody picking a single goalkeeper in the league over him right now, period.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that's the obvious. Kai Wagner, arguably, I think one of the best left backs in the league, and it's why he will probably not be here come 2023. I think, you know, he has, you know, again, another diamond in the rough project that Ernst Tanner found and has elevated into a defender of the year status, you know, level player. One of the best center back pairings of Glesnes and Elliott, two tall men who complement each other well. Both are great passers. You know, Glesnes definitely the more physical of the two. And I think, you know, Elliott, obviously the quicker. Is Olivier Mbaizo. You know, for all we said about him in last year's Eastern Conference Final, you know, he was the only real starter on the back line, and he was at fault for both goals. He arguably had one of his best games defensively in that Eastern Conference Final, and I think it's starting to show that he is really starting to improve his defensive game, and he is absolutely ridiculous going forward. So that real question is, which team's fullbacks are going to pin the other team's fullbacks back, because both teams' fullbacks can bomb up the wings, and if the Union get going, LAFC is going to really, really struggle to push that ball up, because both teams like to play out of the back, like to get that possession going. And that's changed from the Union from the first half of the year, where when we played LAFC, we were still a dump and chase kind of a team. And now we don't mind having possession. We can really play the game out and allow the game to come to us. In the midfield, again, El Brujo, listen, that LAFC game in 2020 where he went through 3 different jerseys, I think endeared him to all of us. That man is Philadelphia through and through. He is a meme machine, just the way he operates and the way he is obviously, as Jim has said, he's become one of the best 6s in the league, arguably top 5 right now. Leon Flock, as I said, probably the most underrated midfielder in the Eastern Conference. Someone who just has an insane work rate and can cover a lot of ground and allows Brujo to step up more than the team may like. Jack McGlynn obviously will be in for Ali. Jack McGlynn, is probably going to be the next homegrown to go. He is absolutely a regista type player, a player that can just stand and pick out a pass, a 30-yard, dime over the top. And that's absolutely, what allows Daniel Gazdag, who will be at the tip of that diamond, to just crash the box, to play his game, which is being that goal-scoring number 10 and also creating with the front 2 of Carranza and Ua. And I think, Carranza has that ability to just pull a rabbit out of his hat, and Ua is going to list. I think Chiellini is going to have his hands full with Mikel Ua, because Mikel Ua is probably one of the fastest players on the team. He is a direct runner. When he gets in behind, he is not someone who is thrown off the ball easily. And if this forces Murillo to really do a lot more of the running and force play, I think if that stretches that back line, it could be this could be a long game. But you're going to see how this team has changed and how both teams have changed over these past few, since they last met. And that's why I'm beyond excited for this game, and it will be an absolute haymaker of a match.
Absolutely. All right, let's knock this out real quick. Let's start, Justin. Let's go with the predictions. Give us predictions and a key to the match.
I think this is going to be low scoring, despite the offenses being what they are. I think it is going to be there are going to be a lot of chances, and I think that's how it is. It was in the last matchup, but I think in terms of goals, I think it'll be a bit lower. I don't know if my heart could take PKs, but I'm going to say 2-1 Union. I think this is going to be one where goals are traded in the first half. And then, Corey Burke. I think Corey Burke is thrown on and shows his super sub. I mean, listen, he had, that goal, that run he had for his goal was something I think in past years we haven't seen from him. And that is the reason why we were able to get rid of Sergio Santos, why we've been fine with the 3 strikers as is. And I genuinely think the key to this matchup is going to be, again, which front 3 dominates which defense, because it's going to be a moment or two. And when it comes down to it, the Union have been one of the most clinical teams with limited chances. And I think if you're that back line of LSD, you are concerned because you saw what happened the last time. They didn't have many chances, but guess what? Both those shots on net went in. And can you say definitively that Andre Blake is going to give up 2 goals again? Like, that's the thing. That's something you can't rely on and go, yeah, we'll be able to pump 2 or 3 past the Union. It's like, well, wait, you pumped, at least 2 past Austin because Austin wasn't ready. And I think punched above their weight this season. I don't think you're to catch the Union napping in this game. And I think you'll see why. And I think Andre Blake will win the playoff MVP because he has been one of the reasons you got here, and he's the reason, arguably, that you outside, before that explosion of goals, he's the reason you won that game.
Absolutely, man. Jonathan, give us a prediction. And since this is a Union podcast, give us a key for the Union to beat your LAFC side.
So the key to the match for me, the biggest matchup is going to be Blake versus the ball. If he can find a way to, once again, just be on his head and stopping everything left and right, then Philly's going to be hoisting a cup at the end of this game. If LAFC can figure out a way to take this high volume of shots and create high quality shots instead of volume of shots, or if that volume finds a way to be just a little more clinical, then LAFC will walk away with it. But I think this game will be decided by the gloves of Blake. And whether or not he's able to make the big saves in those big moments, it's going to be a game of millimeters, whether or not he's going to be able to get to the shot or not. And I think that ultimately decides who is the 2-1 victor. I do think this is a much different LAFC team than faced Philly last time. This is arguably a better Philly team now than when they faced LAFC as well, too. So, I mean, look, you can't ask for much more than this, right? I mean, this is arguably the best MLS Cup final ever. It is undoubtedly the best MLS Cup of the last 20 years. And we are going to be treated to one heck of a game either way. But I'm going to go ahead and call it 2-1 for the black and gold.
2-1 for the black and gold. Jonathan called it there. Jonathan, one more question before we head out here. What are tickets running for right now in Bank of California for Saturday?
I think a little over $1,000 is the cheapest that I have seen today. I would imagine they would probably get back down into the $500 to $600 range. I think we're at that moment in the ticket cycle in which prices are extremely high. I think if you wait till day of the game, you might be able to sneak in for $250 to $350 a ticket. But it's going to be a wild one, right? No one's going to be allowed to park at the stadium because
I saw that. That
homecoming
is bonkers.
So Exposition Park runs the parking. LAFC does not run the parking. And Exposition Park informed LAFC a couple days ago that they will not allow any MLS fans to park at the stadium. So they're going to be having everybody park at Dodger Stadium and have them shuttle on down, and they're encouraging people to take Metro. It's going to be a little wild. I think, the black and gold family are pretty furious that Exposition Park has taken our tailgate space away from us. They have taken our parking away from us. And I think that's adding a little bit of spice to everybody as they come into the stadium. So I think fans are going to be, there's not going to be a very relaxed atmosphere when fans get into the stadium, right? So I do think, one thing I know is that the 3252 will be insanely loud. It's going to be about 25 degrees cooler this weekend than it was for the Austin game. We had multiple fans in the North End getting sent to the medical tent because they were suffering from heat stroke in this last game. I don't think we're going to be seeing any of that this time around. You're going to have a very, very boisterous North End. And there's a healthy contingency of, DOOP fans coming out as well, too. It's just going to be a great day for soccer in this country. I think, we might look back in 10 years and consider this one of those turning point moments where this league really takes a boost from this game. And I'm hoping the quality on the pitch from both teams delivers what my heart is hoping, just in a quality of game. And win or lose for LAFC, I hope the league is better off on Monday than it is today.
Should be fun, man. It should be a lot of freaking fun. Jonathan, where can people find the Shoulder to Shoulder podcast?
At LAFC S2S on all your social media platforms. You can find Shoulder to Shoulder podcast on pretty much every podcast platform that is out there. We are in about an hour going to be recording a super pod where we are bringing in hosts of every single one of the 900 LAFC podcasts to try and do a giant roundtable with 10 or 15 different shows being represented, getting our fans hyped up and ready for this game. It's a really fun, well-knit community amongst the LAFC pod fam, and we're going to be cranking out some content for everybody. And I've been doing guest appearances on like 900 different shows this week as well, too. I was on BBC Wales late last night, early this morning for them. And everyone's just excited about this. And so, you can find us a lot of places, Shoulder to Shoulder, but appreciate you, compa.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jonathan Reimer, and of course to the Shoulder Shoulder podcast. And thank you guys for checking on in this episode of DOOP by the River. Truly appreciate it. It's a fun time right now. Of course, the Union are in the MLS Cup, and I'm hoping you guys enjoy it as much as we are as well. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe for more of your future live viewings of DOOP by the River. Of course, you can find us wherever you stream podcasts. We're available on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Find us under DOOP by the River podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Jonathan Reimer from the Shoulder Shoulder podcast. That is Justin, Body by Burke instructor Friedberg. Of course, I am El Parcero Philly, and we're telling you guys to DOOP on. Bring home the cup. Let's go.